All right, let's jump right into this explainer. When you picture a stereotypical American, what exactly comes to mind? Well, for a lot of the world, the reputation is pretty much set in stone. We are this upbeat, cheerful, just relentlessly positive group of people. I mean, we smile a lot, sometimes to the complete bafflement of folks from other cultures. Being positive, both in our daily mood and our general outlook on the future, really does feel like it's deeply hardwired into the national character. But what if this famous American positivity isn't actually a reflection of genuine happiness? What if it's something else entirely? Today, we're going to unpack a fascinating and honestly a slightly unsettling cultural paradox.
If you open up Barbara Ehrenreich's acclaimed book, Bright-Sided, you are immediately hit with this brilliant contrarian battle cry right in the dedication. It says, "To complainers everywhere, turn up the volume." Right out of the gate, she is laying down a really bold, provocative thesis. She's arguing that our relentless, mandatory positive thinking isn't just, annoying to the more cynical among us. It might actually be a dangerous ideology. It's a system we are essentially forced to participate in. But to really understand why she makes such a heavy claim, we have to look at a pretty glaring contradiction in how Americans actually live.
So here is the central mystery we need to solve. If we are so famously positive all the time, why aren't we actually happy? We've got this intense societal mandate to always look on the bright side, to find the silver lining, and to project this constant aura of optimism. And yet, when you pull back the curtain and start looking at the actual metrics of well-being and life satisfaction, that cheerful exterior crumbles pretty fast. It reveals a much grimmer reality just beneath the surface. Let's actually look at some numbers here.
23. I want you to hold on to that number for a second. In a massive, worldwide meta-analysis of over 100 different studies that measured self-reported happiness, the United States did not come in first. We didn't even crack the top 10. We ranked 23rd. So despite all our cultural obsession with being upbeat, we actually fall behind the Dutch, the Danes, the Malaysians, and even the famously dour Finns when it comes to just simply feeling happy.
And honestly, the picture gets even worse when we look beyond just feelings and dive into more objective metrics. 150. When economists try to rank nations by tangible well-being, factoring in hard data like physical health, upward mobility, and environmental sustainability, the United States absolutely plummets. On the Happy Planet Index, America sits way down at 150th place. That is a massive, massive disconnect from our sunny self-image.
And then there's this statistic, which is just staggering. Americans make up a relatively small fraction of the global population, right? Yet we consume an absolutely massive 2/3, 66%, of the entire global market for antidepressants. They are literally the most commonly prescribed drugs in the country. As Ehrenreich points out in her research, without our heavy use of antidepressants, our baseline happiness ranking of 23rd would likely be far, far lower. We are essentially medicating ourselves just to keep up with the exhausting demand to feel good.
Which brings us right to the core argument of Ehrenreich's book. How exactly does she solve this paradox? Well, she argues that American positivity is not a natural condition. It's not a genuine mood. Instead, it is an ideology. It's a mandatory, exhausting lens through which we are expected to explain the world and function every single day. We aren't naturally this cheerful. We are performing a societal expectation. And as the data clearly shows, it's leaving us incredibly stressed out.
To really grasp what she means here, we need to understand a vital distinction Ehrenreich makes between hope and optimism. Now, hope is a natural human emotion. It's a yearning for things to get better, and it isn't entirely within our control. You either feel it or you don't. But optimism, at least in the American sense, is a totally different beast. It is a cognitive stance. It's a conscious expectation that requires deliberate, disciplined practice. You are expected to actively train your brain to expect the best, completely regardless of the actual evidence sitting right in front of you.
And because optimism requires this nonstop practice, it leads to what Ehrenreich calls the exhausting work of self-deception. I mean, think about the underlying anxiety at the heart of this. If the universe naturally trended toward happiness, we wouldn't need to try so darn hard to be positive all the time. The very fact that we have to practice it means we are actively fighting against reality. We are constantly working overtime to pump up our belief that things will be fine, even when we are staring down contradictory, often highly negative, real-world evidence.
Positivity isn't just a passive personality trait. It is a full-time job. It involves reading endless motivation books, paying for incredibly expensive seminars, and exerting constant mental effort. In fact, gurus and life coaches actually use terms like mind control and thought control. And why? Because you literally have to deliberately block out negative thoughts, repress unpleasant possibilities, and willfully ignore very real warnings about your finances, your health, or the economy just to maintain that mandatory sunny disposition.
But wait, the ideology goes even deeper than that, straight into the realm of the mystical. There is a wildly popular, frankly irrational core to American positive thinking. It's this belief that your thoughts can directly manipulate the physical world around you. The idea is that if you simply think happy thoughts, you will magically cure diseases and attract immense wealth. But conversely, and this is the truly terrifying part of the ideology, if you harbor negative thoughts, you will literally invite disaster, sickness, and failure right into your life.
And that brings us to a severe societal danger. As the acclaimed author Thomas Frank noted when praising Ehrenreich's analysis, looking on the bright side turns out to be a fantastic tool for society to just brush off poverty, disease, and unemployment. Think about it. If success is purely just a matter of having the right positive mindset, then systemic failures, like a crashing economy or a totally underfunded healthcare system, well, they can be completely ignored. The system isn't broken, your attitude is.
So, what this ultimately results in is a remarkably cruel blame game. Under the strict rules of positive thinking, if you fall ill, or if you get laid off, or if you can't pay your mortgage, you have absolutely no one to blame but yourself. Society tells you that you simply weren't thinking positively enough. You didn't visualize success hard enough. It's a philosophy that completely strips away compassion and replaces it with personal fault for things that are completely outside an individual's control.
Now, I want to be super clear here. This isn't just one author's fringe, cynical rant. Ehrenreich's takedown of delusional optimism struck a massive chord when it was published. It drew widespread critical acclaim from heavy-hitting publications ranging from Business Week all the way to the Sunday Times. The late great thinker Christopher Hitchens even applauded her for resisting this societal drool, as he put it. The consensus among these critics is pretty clear. America's desperate insistence on facial optimism has severely eroded our ability to ask uncomfortable but absolutely necessary questions.
So, you might be wondering, is this just who Americans have always been? Was the country built from day one on this brand of shallow, risk-averse cheerfulness? Well, according to history, the answer is a resounding no. If we rewind and look back to the very roots of the nation, we see a completely different mindset at play. Contrast today's forced cheer with the gritty, eyes-wide-open realism of the Founding Fathers. When those guys signed the Declaration of Independence, they certainly weren't relying on magical positive thinking to manifest a victory. They were committing outright treason. They explicitly pledged their lives and their fortunes, knowing full well that execution by hanging was a very, very real possibility. They undertook massive, calculated risks without any delusional guarantees of success. They faced the hard, incredibly negative facts of reality, and they acted anyway.
Which brings us to the ultimate question we really have to ask ourselves today. When we are faced with real challenges, whether they're personal crises, economic downturns, or massive global issues, are we actually taking clear-eyed steps to fix them? Or are we just relying on an exhausting ideology, forcing ourselves to smile and pretend everything is totally fine? It's a provocative thought to leave you with. Perhaps true progress doesn't actually start with a sunny attitude, but rather with the courage to finally face the hard facts. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.